Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Esoteric Influences for the 7th day of August 2020. I almost said October. Sometimes I just wish it would be fall, don't you? Sometimes the heat is just too much to deal with. Well, in any event, let's go on with the reading and not worry about how warm it is here on the high desert. But it's been in the 90s, and and it's also been triple digits for a couple of days, and that was just, you have to stay inside. It's just too much. Anyway, today's a 7 energy for the 7th day of August, and also an 8 energy for the month, and leadership's issues are still happening today. Let me get this a little bit more where I can see it. No, I don't need that, and I don't need that. I don't need that. I need my notes. There they are. It's like, don't you love it when everything just sort of shows up on the screen all at once? Let me put this up here and pull this down. All right. I apologize for this, but I want this to be where I can see it. All right. There we go. Anyhow, we'll start over. It's the 7th day of August, 2020. We have an 8 energy for the month, which is practical matters. It's also leadership. Think the spiritual warrior within. And think the God Tyr, the rune Tiwaz, all of that sort of involves itself into the 8. But again, it's being able to understand the greater harmony and the greater collective issues that we deal with from a standpoint of understanding the collective aspect of all of it. So with a 7 energy, that's kind of what you're wanting to do today. You're wanting to think the scales where you're letting everything settle out and find their balance. See what's really going on before you act. You want to take an observer role, in other words, and find your balance, allow emotions to settle, and realign your perceptions today. Realistically, that's what we're talking about. Whether we're talking about our response to the virus and how we manage safety and of self and others, or whether we're talking about dealing with the with everybody protesting and what's happening to them from because of the police or because of the goon squad that got sent into Portland. Whatever all of that is, it's funny you're not hearing a lot about that right now. So maybe maybe the DHS people have stepped back and they're not in the other cities. I just haven't heard about it, or maybe they are, and they're not taking the same type of role that they did in Portland. That was just awful. I did a piece on Medium too that I just published, about Portland, and so you might check that out. I spent a lot of time in Portland. We moved there from Alaska in 1968, and I went to Portland State University. I went to 2 other colleges as well, but then during the first year, but then I transferred to Portland State in my sophomore year. And I lived downtown for about a year as well during that time, and there's just nothing like Portland. So the nonsense that's being said about it is just wrong. It's lies. Whatever has happened with respect to violence is a little more complicated than it's not the normal Portland protesters doing it. There are people that are coming in from outside places, other states, and are causing problems. And so, again, it's important in a 7 energy day to be able to see the entire picture of something and understand what's really going on, and then make your decisions accordingly. See the truth in things. Live there. Don't try to live in the denial or the deception or, oh, well, let's just not really talk about that. Let's just let that go. No. We can't do that right now. We have to see the whole truth and behave accordingly. All right. Uruz is our rune for today, the 2nd rune of the Elder Futhark. Looks like the aurochs, which doesn't exist anymore. I would say think more in terms of maybe a buffalo, because it kind of has that slanted back to it there. I have to wonder if aurochs did too. Was the buffalo, in fact, what we have now as a buffalo? Is that what an aurochs actually did look like? I don't know, because I think they were gone before we were ever born. But in any event, it was just a very large cow or a large bull. But it's the idea of all this unbridled strength that they have, especially when they want something, they want to plow through a fence. I had that happen with 2 Holstein cows when we first moved here back in '81. It was our first attempt at having cows, and so they wanted to get into the grain shed, and so they jumped into the pond. They broke down the fence that was around it, and so I had to hammer it back up while one was standing there watching. And once I got it back up, and Holsteins are tall, and this was like a 5-foot fence, the way where I had it. He jumped it and cleared it by 6 feet. After I was done, he's like watching me. It's like, well, watch this, Mom, and over he went. So they have a mind of their own, and there's an element with urus in terms of manifestation that's very powerful. It's the water element. It's the primal forming essence, health, endurance, healing, strength, energy shaping matter, but the forming force behind that experience. And so again, that's perception. And is it based on ego or higher self? Right? That's really the issue here. So new thought patterns form today as perceptions continue to shift. Health issues continue as the virus is yet to be contained. But we have the opportunity now with the influence of urus, the strength of urus, and the ability to shift perception, to arrive at a unified understanding of what's at stake right now. Alignment and shared understanding and truth promises a better outcome than dissension and denial will surely create. And again, it takes the ability, the strength of being able to look at your perceptions, look at what you believe, and figure out, is that going to take me in a positive direction, or is it going to just cause me more grief? Anytime you don't live in truth, there's always a cost, right? You may not feel it right away, but eventually you will. You make, and the cost may be on someone else who's innocent and who's just doing what they're supposed to do, right? And then now all of a sudden they're experiencing a bunch of nonsense, all because someone at the hands of someone else's misperception and the subsequent deception that follows. See, I don't know. Use this time today with the 7 energy to come to balance, and then to check your perceptions and see that they're actually meaningful, or are they just simply problematic and causing issues for others that have to deal with it then. And yeah, the guy that decided to come up to the kid in the restaurant and yell at him for wearing a mask, wanting him to take it off, and he won't. And then he gets in his face. I don't know if he coughed on him or what. Is this, now I've given you the COVID or some such thing? Oh my God, who does that? And to a child? I don't know how old the kid was. Maybe he was a teenager, but so what? Go away. Don't bother people. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Well, the moon has already traveled into Aries this morning. Did it at 6:05 a.m. my time, at Pacific Daylight Time. So as you transition to a more active and decisive approach with the moon in Aries today, you may strike out on your own, which might impact close relationships today. If you take it a go it alone thing when maybe you shouldn't. That's the moon square Venus today. That's an aspect there with the moon. Express yourself in a loving manner to avoid conflict with others. A single-minded focus, when you forget everybody else, they matter too. And sometimes we get caught up in our own thing and we don't realize that, right? And we don't remember that there are other people involved that matter too, and that have a say in what happens. And so again, using the guy in the restaurant with the kid, telling him to take the mask off and getting mad at him. I mean, who are you? Who are you to do that? You have this single-minded focus that you cannot understand, that somebody just wants to be safe. Don't they have a right? Don't they have a right to err on the side of caution right now, particularly in a pandemic? We used to understand what that meant. People used to be on board with something like that. I don't know what's going on, other than the messaging is the problem. The messaging from the powers that be. Which takes us into the human design aspect of today's reading. Yesterday we had the channel of the Alpha again that was active. We have it again today, along with the channel of awareness and openness, indicating, you know, higher self impacting our relationships with everyone. We need to keep that really in focus as the channel of the Alpha rears its ugly head, or not so ugly head. It just depends on how it's expressed. So it's kind of a neutral effect. It's like, well, leadership in all forms. Well, what does that mean? Well, we have to allow for leadership that's lacking and failing and doesn't understand the greater picture, you know, sees everything from a self-dealing focus. So there's no way that that person is going to understand the effect or impact or even care necessarily of what that is on other people. It's the leader that wants to shove everything under the rug and not get to the truth. Maybe wanting to protect someone in the process when that shouldn't be happening. You know, somebody maybe was harmed in the process. And if you don't have the truth, how do you really fix this? It's like, oh, we're going to put blinders on, we're not going to really see it. Well, you better. And you better live in truth, because if you don't, and you're in a leadership position with other people, or it's just the leadership position of yourself, you know, in terms of how you interact with other people, well, are you going to do it from a self-dealing, deceptive way, or are you going to do it from away from the light of truth? Okay? That expresses that. That's really what we're dealing with in terms of leadership today. So leadership and how it's expressed continues to be in focus today as we contend with messaging surrounding order and societal norms, suggesting a level of mistrust has been cultivated by those who wish to retain power and control. However, I'm going to come back to that. So let me bold this just so I remember to come back to it. That may be how I keep my place here. However, a metamorphosis is also occurring now. In other words, transformation, one that replaces mistrust with faith in a more acceptable outcome. And we're willing to accept the transformation in perceptions that must now take place. So interact with others today with integrity and resolve, knowing that any limitations experienced may actually foster the greatest change. You know, so if you look at this from the negative side of leadership, one that wants to keep things under the rug and not tell the truth about anything, well, if you're now having to do that, you could view that as a limitation, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to do this, you know, I don't want to tell the truth. I want to protect this person, or I want to protect myself, or I don't really want, well, we'll let this part come out, but not that. We don't really need to talk about that part. But at the heart of that, there's always somebody who's getting hurt by it, and you can't have that. So whether it's about an interaction in your personal life that this is talking about, if you do that, again, it creates a level of mistrust that's cultivated by that choice to be deceptive. And it's like, oh, well, it's just a little lie. No, a lie's a lie. And somewhere along the line, it's going to hurt somebody. And you don't have any right to do that, right? And I think right now, you know, you're seeing leadership, unfortunately, in terms of the federal government, in terms of the current administration, who can't get it together enough to it's like, what did the Kellyanne person say yesterday? Or maybe it was just a clip from another day, but it's like, you know, we flattened the virus. Oh, you don't think we flattened the virus, she said? Are you kidding me? No. So again, it's the self-dealing, it's the willingness to lie and to dissemble and not tell the truth about anything, you know, or to shape the truth in a way that suits you the best. Well, that's not what we're dealing with right now. And right now we need truth in leadership and truth in our interactions with other people. So make every effort to do that today, and we'll talk again tomorrow. So be good to yourself, be good to one another, wear a mask if you go out, and blessed be.